more confrontational actions that would justify police repression. So what has been the movement's response to these dilemmas posed by this new aggressive form of political policing? In my experience, there's been one mantra: don't talk to cops. But my last trip to Occupy Wall Street is now several weeks old, and the occupation in the city I live, Binghamton, is quite meager and undeveloped. In my limited experience, I can say the don't talk to cops mantra is being used to shut down all conversation concerning the dilemmas posed by the police. Folks will rightly point out that the role of police in capitalist society is to defend property from the encroachment of the unwashed masses. They cite the history, the long history of the repression of nearly every radical movement in the United States, beginning with labor movements and extending all the way to the iconic movements of the 1960s, to say that not talking to the police is a safety measure enforced to ensure the safety of those involved in direct action. Here, I would like to raise a contrarian point. The argument above in favor of a blanket prohibition against talking to the police is posturing. It lifts the stance from previous movements without understanding the conditions of those movements or the condition of our current movements. During the long 1960s, movements were harder to infiltrate, communications were more secure, and organizing was not as public or as open as this current model. Political policing was also clumsier. COINTELPRO was centrally directed by J. Edgar Hoover, and as a result was slow and uneven. Police were rarely trained in intelligence methods. Domestic intelligence gathering was limited. Today, political policing is decentralized and continuous. Police are trained by security consultants, the CIA, and DHS in intelligence methods. Some are even sent to Israel for counter-terrorism training. Domestic intelligence gathering is ubiquitous, constant, and rapid. With the rise of SWAT teams and the experience of the war on drugs, police are increasingly militarized. Given the development of the intelligence capacity of contemporary police forces, not talking to the police has no bearing on the safety of those involved in civil disobedience. Absolutely none. The police can find out anything they want. With this said, we need to have a conversation about what to do regarding the police. Given the events of the past week, I'm sure conditions are moving us past don't talk to the cops and towards an acknowledgement of the situation in which we find ourselves and our movement. So finally, and by way of a conclusion, the open source nature of the Occupy movement is both its strength and its weakness. It's its strength because it is supremely democratic in an age of ubiquitous corruption. It is its weakness because it offers no clear means to guide against aggressive new police practices. The old mantra, don't talk to the cops, is irrelevant, unfeasible, and leaves our movement at a distinct disadvantage. While we must by all means be judicious in our engagements with the police, the idea that we can close them out and maintain a veil of secrecy leaves us vulnerable. Indeed, one of the next steps the movement needs to take needs to be legal redress and a neutralization of police violence. Legal redress is already being pursued. Occupy Wall Street won a temporary restraining order that got them back into the park after it was cleaned out and dispersed last Tuesday. Here at Occupy Boston, another temporary restraining order is postponing the pending clearing of the encampment. The neutralization of police violence is a much more difficult and dangerous task, but it is a necessary insurance policy to complement the legal measures already being pursued. To this end, we need to engage the police in such a way that utilizes the fissures that exist within the power structure, much in the same way as they aim to do with our own movement. Cracks are already visible, and they offer some hope. Consider these three examples. First, at the Albany occupation, dozens have been arrested. But the Albany County District Attorney, David Soares, has thus far refused to prosecute nonviolent protesters. Despite despite pressure from Governor Cuomo, Soares refuses to budge. Second, Oakland's deputy mayor and their legal advisor resigned following the second crackdown on Occupy Oakland. As the movement continues to gain momentum, and as pressure continues to get put on municipal governments and police departments, we'll continue to see more defections, more resignations, more government officials refusing to comply in the crackdown against constitutionally protected political activity. The third example I'm going to cite came after the much publicized pepper spraying of two corralled young women in the early days of Occupy Wall Street. Following this, the OWS Twitter account reported that 100 NYPD officers refused to report to work in protest. The count, despite being widely forwarded, the report was unconfirmed. As far as I know, there has been no further information reported on the matter. But still, the protest on the part of certain police officers presents an interesting opportunity to exploit division within police ranks. From the outside, there is no indication that any such effort has been pursued. In short, I raise these three examples as events that present possible openings that could lead to the neutralization of police violence. As the Occupy movement continues to gain momentum, it will continue to be the target of aggressive policing. We need to move beyond don't talk to the police and have an actual conversation about how to deal with the dilemma of police power. There will be no easy solution. Opening up more possible tactics and postures towards the police opens up more possible threats and more dangers of infiltration. Acknowledging this difficulty, however, should not be a recourse to stick to the hard-headed refusal to have a conversation about the dilemma of police power. There is no good answer to the violence and coercive power of the state. Politics is a messy and indeterminate process. We do not know where it will lead. Similarly, there will be no universal resolution to any such conversation. Differences among occupations, their locations, their participants will make different approaches more viable for others than others for different occupations. I do not pretend to have any answers. I am trying to put forth a new position that sets many issues in relief in an attempt to help create the basis for a difficult and necessary conversation. So thank you for listening, and thank you for putting up with the sprinkler test. So with that said, I'd love to hear what anyone says and have a conversation on this. What's up?
What good do you think will come from a conversation with the police?
I'm not necessarily saying a conversation with the police, right? I'm saying we need to talk about the police. In my limited experience, when I have gone down to Occupy Wall Street about 4 times, right? Every time I've been there, when a matter around security has come up, someone from the legal team comes over, says, do not talk to the police, you're undermining the legal team. This very well could be changing. The only thing I think that we need to do, right, start talking about what to do. I don't know if you're here for this part, right? I ran through changes in policing that have happened in the last decade. Domestic intelligence gathering has just rapidly expanded, right? Not talking to the police doesn't really accomplish anything. It remains to be seen whether talking to the police will accomplish something. I think we would talk about it.
Well, I mean, more information they have, the more power they have against us. Understand? Like if they know where we're marching to, they'll have police force ready to block that location when we get there. If they don't know where we're marching, we can march there without any interference and have more success on the march. And it's that kind of conversation with the police that is worrisome. So if you're going to say talk